教えてよ教えてよその仕組みを僕の中に誰がいるの
So hi everyone, it's DIVISIVE. If some of you don't know already, I am a big Game of Thrones fan. I've loved this show from the very beginning up to the final season that has now been finished and has also ended this incredible series. Like all things, there were aspects of this show's story and characters I have liked, and there were things I wasn't as thrilled about. But getting to see the full picture and appreciate what this epic story has brought to my life and the lives of many, I'm sure, I have to admit, I am a happy man. But I'm also heartbroken. Game of Thrones is over. Yes, the books aren't over yet, and there's a bunch of spin-off series in development at HBO, but still, this final episode left me in a mess. But at least most of my favorite characters survived the big game and got a satisfying closure to their arcs. Or have they? I think it's time I also entered the conversation, the very heated conversation regarding the character of Daenerys and her arc, character choice and overall execution. This final season was incredibly divisive. I don't think I've seen something quite like this since Star Wars Episode 8 The Last Jedi. A lot of fans aren't happy with a lot of the things that transpired in the story of the show, but mostly I think they were not happy with how Daenerys was portrayed in these last episodes. So, before I lay out to you my opinion, which I'm sure won't please either sides of the argument, let me just say that I can see and understand, and most of all, respect those who hated and those who enjoyed what happened with Daenerys in this season's last two episodes. Alright then, about Daenerys. So in episode 5 we finally see Dany and her armies, the Unsullied, led by Grey Worm, and the one from the north by Jon, reach King's Landing and its respective armies and defenses. They win the battle fair and square with ease. After all, when you have a fucking dragon at your side, all that is left is for the Queen to surrender and its men to ring the bells. Cersei has no intentions of doing that, of course. Stubborn and proud as she is, we know she's not doing it. But Tyrion knew all along that, and so beforehand he set free Jaime and asked them to ring those damn bells, just in time, preventing the bloodshed that Daenerys said there will be if Cersei didn't surrender. The bells ring, and the King's Landing soldiers surrender. The bells ring, and all seems to end peacefully, and Cersei about to get justice for all of her previous crimes. The bells ring, but Dany is not content with that sound. Deep down, she didn't want to hear them. Deep down, she wanted to have an excuse, to be able to get revenge for the ones she lost at Cersei's hands. She looked straight at the castle where Cersei is, the keep that was her family's for thousands of years. The throne that was stolen from her by her enemies, by the enemy that took her best female friend and her most trusting advisor. She can't contain her urges anymore. That need for revenge, that need to make it personal. She makes a choice, a painful choice that we see clearly through Emilia Clarke's brilliant performance. She flies off, and she burns them all. I think we can all agree that the performances and the direction in that moment, in that scene, were superbly done. I've heard a lot of fans say the reason why the moment, Dany's choice, didn't work was that it didn't make sense for her character, and was a betrayal to what has been established for her. I've heard a lot of fans say that actually the moment and choice made sense in the context of the story, but it was rushed and had not much warning, so it felt it came out of nowhere. The second point, I can understand, but not the first, to be honest. To not want Daenerys to turn bad and stay good because of the love for the character is completely fair. That's what fuels a story, the love and care for its fictional characters that make it all the more exciting to watch unfold. The conflict of one of your favorite characters fighting between her own demons and her best side, her forgiving and merciful heart, is what makes the story all the more emotionally engaging. But to say that conflict was never there is blasphemy. Daenerys as a character has always been dictated by her emotions.
The Night King is coming.
The dead are already here.
Throughout the series, she has always been close into succumbing to her worst impulses. Only the times she actually has just happen to not involve directly innocent people, and only the shitty people who actually deserve to die. In her case, by fire. She always needed someone by her side who would show her a better path, will guide her, advise her in keeping those vengeful feelings in check. In times of war, she always knew what to do. After all, it is easier when you have 3 dragons at your side to just burn your enemies out of the picture. But what do you do after? Daenerys is a conqueror after all. She always has been first and foremost. Asking for advice, for counsel, is not a bad thing to do. Like Tyrion rightfully said to Cersei in Season 7's finale, Daenerys asks people whom she trusts what other ways she can do things better, how she can improve, and what she's doing wrong. Unlike Cersei, who knows exactly what she is and does things her own way without much care for everyone else. But there's a problem there. A problem on how I phrase Daenerys' thought process, because in her mind, that's how she thinks. She sees her actions. But once you switch perspectives and see things as an outsider, they become very different, those actions. And I think it shows how brilliant these 2 last seasons have been portraying Daenerys. Because from the first season to Season 6, we have followed her journey on a very personal level. We've seen her hardships, we've seen her changing due to the pain she has endured. And so purposely, the minds behind this show have portrayed Dany as an heroic figure, giving only a couple of small hints as to her true nature. But from the moment she enters the big game, the moment she arrives at Westeros, and a civil war starts, the perspective changes and we see how the people in Westeros see Daenerys. Through the characters we've been following all this time as much as Dany, we see her on a different light. We see them constantly questioning her. Something we've seen rarely the people closest to her like Jorah, like Missandei, like Grey Worm do. She is a stranger after all, that comes to Westeros and demands to rule it right off the bat without knowing the people she will rule over. The only base to her ruling is her name and the history of her family, but like Sir Davos tells her,
Dothraki to Westeros. He is the first to make allies of wildlings and Northmen. He was named Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. He was named King in the North. Not because of his birthright. He has no birthright. He's a damn bastard. All those hard sons of bitches chose him as their leader because they believe in him.
Someone like Jon has no birthright, no name, and yet he built trust with people who couldn't be forced to bend the knee. Despite keeping her preach about breaking the wheel, wanting to help people, gain their love, the love of the people that live in the same kingdom where she was born, that's just an afterthought, and it becomes very clear very fast when trying to gain the trust of outsiders that don't need to be set free, they already are, unlike Missandei, unlike the Unsullied. The only other people she was able to make them follow her, she did it by force. The only other way she immediately uses to the Westerosi lords she meets. She doesn't try to put herself in their shoes, she prefers to make them fear her instead of making them love her. Daenerys wants the throne, nothing more. It's all she ever cared about. Whether it was the Night King or not, that vision she had was always meant to happen, whether we wanted or not, despite us wanting her to overcome her toxic desire. Her fate was tied from the very beginning to the throne, and she meant to pay the ultimate price for her obsession. The way Tyrion phrases the reason why he believes Daenerys will be a good ruler is in reality the reason why she will not. Look no further than Jon and his actions that happen to mirror Daenerys's. The only difference is that Jon actually doubts himself after he passes the sentence, after he makes a hard choice, a bloody choice. He feels something after, he questions his decisions, whether they were good or bad. He's constantly put in tough spots, having to make tough choices, and yes, he also hears others, but in the end, he is the one who makes the ultimate choice and pays its price. He knows what's right because he checks on his humanity and learns from his mistakes. That's what a good ruler is. A ruler that needs her impulses to be checked on a constant basis? That's no different from Cersei. She shouldn't need to be put in check in the first place. Jon surely didn't, or Sansa for that matter, who ended up also being a queen. But then, what about all the innocents she has burned? Did she really needed to do it? Was it rushed? In my point of view, I didn't think it was rushed. I've heard a lot of fans point out that McQueen argument, but that wasn't it. At least I didn't see it that way at all. This isn't her going mad. This is her suffering. I think a lot of people forget. In just 2 episodes, one after the other, which I remind you actually all happen in one day, Daenerys fights one of her dragons she thought was dead, loses Jorah, loses another of her dragons, loses Missandei. She loses all of the people she knew best and hold the most dearly, besides Grey Worm, of course, in such a short period of time. Now, how did you expect she will react? To me, it didn't feel rushed at all. Realistically, she will not give a crap anymore. All the people that she has left are people she doesn't know as well, besides Jon. But because of the knowledge of his Targaryen bloodline, he can't give the affection that she desperately needs. So by feeling truly alone, rightfully so, of course she will be in a much darker state of mind. When she looks to the castle and realizes Cersei is watching, even though it's wrong, and she knows it, in the end she decides to not listen to anyone anymore, to let her emotions take over. She decides to make it personal. She wants Cersei to see what she will do to her once she gets a hold of her. That's why she burns the people at King's Landing. And after the dust settles, just like she has always done, in order to justify her choices, she gives excuses, finds justifications for her actions, makes herself believe that there was no other way. It's funny, most of us fell for it again, just like with Oberyn and Robb. Even though we knew the rules of the game were unfair, we still were tricked into believing that everything will turn out well in the end, with Daenerys and Jon together in the throne without paying attention to the signs. I think that's why the shock was greater, but not completely out of the blue though. In the end, Daenerys Targaryen ignored all the clever people around her.
Enough with the clever plans.
And did what she once promised to do.
Dragons are grown. We will take back what was stolen from me and destroy those who have wronged me. We will lay waste to armies and burn cities to the ground.
Game of Thrones was always a tragedy. In the end, Daenerys Targaryen cast out her humanity and embraced what she was always meant to be. No longer the mother of dragons, but the dragon herself.
The lords of Westeros are sheep. Are you a sheep? No. You're a dragon. Be a dragon.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the video, even if you end up disagreeing with my opinions about Daenerys' character's execution. I just wanted to bring my own point of view about this topic. But don't worry, there's more. Oh boy, there's more. This is just the first video of a 2-part series, so be sure you're notified when the second one comes out. Let's just say it is related with a certain night full of terrors, and the one who ended it. Subtle enough, I think. I'll see you then. Until then, I hope you have a rest of a great day. Thank you all for watching the video. Sayonara.